Just when you thought Florida State football recruiting was beginning to trend upward. Oh no, can't have that happen.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We have a rather unique show for you today. I didn't expect this news, but it's recruiting. Like I say all the time, you never know. We've got some bad news at the front, but before we get to that, baseball, Friday, they are going to be at Oregon State. That regional should be pretty interesting. It's one of the longest trips you're going to make. It's better part of 3,000 miles from Tallahassee to the state of Oregon. So good luck to the Noles out there. They have advanced, and that's awesome. That program is headed in the right direction. There's a lot of reason to believe they could make some noise and make it to Omaha. With that being stated, today is still about recruiting. We're going to be talking about some of the official visits, one which is not going to happen. Not a huge deal necessarily, but I'd love to find out the backstory on why. We're also going to be talking about why some key guys that are going to be juniors this year or redshirt sophomores from the class of 23, why they're so important to this next season and Mike Norvell's tenure. But to begin, as I noted, there's no way around this one. Florida State took one on the chin. The Florida Gators added Kaiden Hall, safety out of Milton, Florida, just outside of Pensacola, a Florida State fan, so I am told, growing up. Before he even commits to Florida, you got to keep in mind here, he knew that he hadn't taken the OB to Florida State. It's still technically next weekend, but for right now, he's a Florida Gator. I don't know if Kaiden Hall will take the OB to Tallahassee. I'm sure Florida State's going to try to get him to do that. And historically, this has happened a million times. Florida gets a commit, Florida State flips and vice versa. There's been a lot of those situations. But again, Panhandle kid, you're closer, Florida State fan, and he still commits to the Gators, who I know they beat Florida State last year and all that, but Florida's not very good either. This is a very bad look for the Florida State staff. There are a couple of points that I want to make on that before I get into the big box point of why Kaiden Hall is such an important recruit for the Florida State Seminoles. This is a long one. There is no easy way to explain this. It's complex, so just bear with me. Number one here, this is a kid that you've known about forever. You've recruited forever. You got the OB set up, did all the right things. But to not get him committed is one thing. To not get him on campus prior to him committing to the Florida Gators is just really bad. Like, very few top players are committing right now. Not just in Florida, nationally. The vast majority of players, even three-star kids, are waiting it out and taking their visits. Let that sink in for a second. Schools like Buffalo are getting commitments. Fantastic. Who cares? Florida State and most of the major programs, Bama, Georgia, etc., really aren't getting many commitments. Florida's not really either. But then you get the situation where Kaiden Hall, who's conservatively a national top 5 safety, committing to UF over Florida State before he takes his OB to Florida State. Kaiden Hall is a dude, 6'3", 190 pounds, give or take, just super instinctive, knows where the ball is going. He reminds me of KJ Kirkland with maybe even more upside and probably more sheer athleticism, just very instinctive. Now, I expect Kirkland, guy that I'll mention here in a little bit, to take another step in his progression this year. He's a good football player, but you cannot lose guys right down the road from you and then them go to your arch rival. You're going to lose some recruiting battles to Florida. I get it. If you lose an Orlando kid or a kid from Bradenton, that's one thing. The Panhandle, the I-10 corridor, as I've said 5 million times on this show, you have to own it. When Florida State loses those battles, they tend to lose those battles on game day to Miami and UF. Cannot do that. Now, let's get into the big box part of Kaiden Hall picking the Gators. Obviously, the player himself, I just defined that, but it's where he's from. That area always has players visiting Florida State for camps, unofficial, as they grow up, a ton of Florida State fans. And this year, Trenton Henderson from Pensacola Catholic, you could argue he's the number one player in the state of Florida. Pass rusher, another kid that likes Florida State growing up. Kaiden picking UF, that's probably not good for Trenton Henderson. Not saying that's a lock and they're a guaranteed pair going to UF. I'm sure UF would love that. I get it. But at the same time, that's not exactly a warm and fuzzy feeling for Florida State. And I'm tired of covering bad recruiting, by the way, if you can tell my tone. I am very upset. At some point, you've got to break through, even though you went 2-10 last year, and get an elite recruit, despite not being able to show what you can do this next season, or else this recruiting class will fall apart. Period. You're not going to play a single game before all these official visits are done. There is no shortcut. It will be hard. Do it anyway. This is bad. So, great player goes to your rival. That's a fan of Florida State. And Trenton Henderson's right down the road from him. I'm sure they know each other. And who else is going to be impacted down the road too? Florida starts getting Panhandle kids. That's bad news bears for FSU. They're recruiting better than FSU anyway, but I thought that Florida State might be able to pull Kaiden Hall out. That's rough. Now, do I think he'll eventually take some kind of visit to FSU? Pure speculation? Yeah. An unofficial during the season. Maybe he goes to the Bama game. I have no idea. But something. Do I think he's going to be a young man that ends up at Florida State? No, I don't. I mean, he didn't even take his official visit before committing to UF. So is this another kid? No, I don't know this, but I'm going to find out. Is this another kid they dropped the ball on? Like a certain recruit that's just over the Georgia line? I don't know. But if this continues, my rant on National Signing Day will be epic and heard for decades. This is not acceptable for Florida State to be recruiting in this manner. Again. It's just unbelievable. So, to summarize, it's not over, but Florida gets a commitment, and it is just egg on the face of Florida State because that kid is a Nole fan growing up. He's from the Pensacola area, and somebody you prioritized. You don't even get the OV first? I'm sorry, but that leaves me very uneasy about what's going on in Tallahassee. And if you're a Florida State fan, alum, booster, somebody that follows Florida State in any capacity, that should raise your eyebrows. If it doesn't, then I don't know what to tell you. When we come back, we're going to talk about some other official visits, recruiting in general. That is next here on Locked on Seminoles. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop managing your money and start building your wealth. If you want more convenience, here's another idea as well with Monarch Money. You can get everything that you have with your finances in one place instead of spreading them out like you probably do, myself included for many years, because it's just too easy to forget about it or it's inconvenient to do it in the first place. But once you get that done the first time, it's in one location, much quicker, much more convenient for you. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Florida State is doing well with a local recruit, a hyper local recruit. This is a kid that I saw at the Orlando Under Armour camp. I remember somebody saying, hey, just so you know, Dalen Green, kid from Gadsden County, is really balling out. So I started watching him. He's a strong safety, hybrid linebacker type. This is somebody Mickey Andrews would have loved. That can really run, can really bend and change direction. He's just under 200 pounds, but he's probably going to grow into a will linebacker long term. These are the kind of kids Florida State made a living off of in the 80s and 90s. Killed it. Needs a redshirt year, gets a little bit better, starts on special teams as a redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore. He's in the starting lineup. You're like, who's that guy? He's awesome. Speed, and more speed. Florida State always recruited speed above all else. Dalen has it, and again, he's twitchy. Gadsden County kid, he went to the Florida State camp. They'd offered him a while back, but I don't know what really happened. I didn't hear much about it, but he came to the camp, and like coaches are super picky. They want to see it with their own eyes. Myself or anybody else can tell them, hey, you need to offer this kid. Coaches just never really look at that. They want to see it themselves. And this guy can absolutely play. I especially like Dalen Green in coverage. If you can get guys that can cover in today's game, they can be a 3-down linebacker. Again, not the biggest dude in the world, but if you're going to play at 215, 220 in college football today, you can do it at inside linebacker because you're going to be able to run around guys and have the speed to do it. Dalen Green's one of those players. Could he be the hybrid, the nickel, the linebacker? Like a lot of teams use that. Maybe in certain circumstances. I need to see what Tony White wants to do with his defense this year first before I really get into that. But worst case scenario, I think Dalen will end up at will. They might start him out at strong safety or at least give it a look once he gets to campus if he does decide to pick Florida State. But right now it's trending that way, and he's picked up a crystal ball from one of the guys over at 24/7 Noles. And I don't think there's any way that you're going to discount that. Like local kid had the offer, it still came to camp. Yeah, he wants to go to Florida State. Barring something unforeseen, I bet he commits sometime in the next week or two. He does have an official visit to Arkansas this upcoming weekend. Louisville and several other programs are still after Dalen Green. But again, local kid, he came to camp. It would be surprising if the Noles did not land Dalen Green. Now, an interesting player has picked up an offer. If you remember back, if you're old enough like I am, Lawrence Timmons was a dude. Remember them talking about practice like he was the biggest hitter at Florida State. This is late 90s when they were just dominating everybody. And he was just a guy that carried the big stick or something. They had some saying for him, like he was the boomstick guy, whatever it was. I can't remember exactly. But he was a thumper. Played at Florida State for 3 years, went on to the NFL, played 9 years for the Steelers. Playing more than 3 or 4 years at the NFL level at linebacker is rare because not many guys can take that kind of pounding. Timmons was a dude. Well, his kid, Jay Timmons, Lawrence J. Timmons, he's a much different style of player. He's a DB receiver kind of guy, 5'10", 175. He picked up an offer. Not sure much about him. I believe he lives in the Pittsburgh area. I don't know if Florida State knew about him for a long time, if he'd been camping. I really don't know the backstory on this. But I like that the kid came down with the camp, same thing, but Dalen Green, and competed. For Florida State to get back to where they need to be, this is the exact same path that Bowden used. Like their camps, they used to get kids come in. If they liked them, they offered. They didn't care what the recruiting ranking was. They wanted to see it, and then they would offer accordingly. So we'll see what happens with that. A little bit of news in regards to the quarterback situation. The whole Keyshawn Henderson thing is top of the board. I get that. I did a podcast on him recently. He's taken the OB to Florida State. That's huge. But keep in mind, there are still many other dominoes going on. Let me give you just a little bit of a backdrop here. LSU is in a heated battle for Bo Bentley. Bo Bentley is the quarterback Florida State was one of teams that offered him from the Dallas area. It's going to be LSU or Oklahoma. If Oklahoma gets Bentley, and right now it's like flip a coin for him, the kid they have committed could end up at Florida State. There are other guys involved, and I know it's not likely, but Landon Duckworth just got a prediction to go to South Carolina. He originally committed there as a sophomore, decommitted. Now he's trending back that way. I thought he was going to go to Ole Miss, but it looks like South Carolina now. So all these things are spinning. When one kid commits, the pressure is on that staff that lost him to go after other guys or put pressure on the kids they're recruiting besides him. We're about to see a wild run on recruiting quarterbacks in the next 2-3 weeks, and Florida State is flat out right in the middle of it. Now, one other note here, Antoine Sharp, Palm Beach Central, according to Noles 24/7, is not going to take his official visit to Florida State. I don't know what the deal is on that. I don't know if Florida State missed out in some way, shape, or form because they didn't recruit him hard enough or something. I have no idea what it is. Kind of odd it happened right before his OB, but good luck to Antoine. He is technically committed to play at UCF. We'll see if that holds. When we come back here in just a couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about Florida State's rising junior class, or shall we say their redshirt sophomore. Some of them have sophomore eligibility. On the defensive side, if Florida State's going to make a big jump this year, several of the guys I'm going to talk about are pivotal, because if they don't work out, it's going to be real hard for Florida State to recover and get back anytime soon. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. My guys, Kenton Gibbs, Alex Donover at Locked On ACC, as well as my other show, the Portal Podcast, or a couple other great options. If you're still looking for other stuff, my Portal Podcast, recruiting, NIL, a transfer portal every day. And of course, Locked On ACC is pretty self-explanatory. Everything that's going on, plus a lot of stuff about the House settlement and Florida State situation with the ACC over there on that channel. Now let's dig into some stuff going on with Florida State's sophomore class / junior, depending on if you're redshirted or not. The class of 23, the kids that came in at 23. There are a handful of guys that I just want to talk about. Not going to bring up stats. I'm usually a big stat guy. This is just subjective because I haven't seen Coach White run the defense specifically at Florida State with this specific personnel. It's brand new. Now, I know he uses a 3 safety set, so I'll talk a little more about DBs in this, but I want to talk about a couple categories with each of these guys that's going to be consistent. You're going to hear me talk about probably 2 more than anything else. No big blunders, meaning assignment savvy, and just tackling. How many times, for those of you that are like on the Florida State YouTube page, and you can get this Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your pods, but on the YouTube page, a bunch of you comment after games. I'll do a live show or whatever. One of the things I complained about nonstop, and some of you even more than me last year, how come we can't tackle? Like, our tackling is so shoddy in random sections of the game. They'll do really well for 2 or 3 quarters, and it just kind of goes away. I want to see that for sure. And then again, like, there were just a handful of plays last year. You could tell it was just a total bust. You'd have a guy leading through on a run to block for the running back or quarterback counter or something like that. He's looking for somebody to block. Like, Florida State just completely busted on a run gap fit. Or if it's a pass, kid catches the pass, turns around, and like, there's nobody there. It's kind of hard to tackle them when you're not there. The secondary, the front level, the defensive lineman not pursuing after the ball gets past the line of scrimmage on a screen or a short pass. There were just so many little things that were mental errors and effort that drove me nuts. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, this is going to be boring from the perspective. I'm going to say that about every single kid. Need to see even more of it, even if they were pretty good at it. Because again, when I was growing up watching Florida State's defense, the effort and the consistency with run gap fits and not blowing coverage was insane. Mickey Andrews' defenses just didn't make a lot of errors. They were more athletic than everybody, and people talk about that, but they didn't make the mental errors. That's what made Florida State great. They out-executed you. What a shocking revelation. That works. Last year, Florida State would be more talented based on the roster probably than 8 or 9 of the teams they played and won 2 games. They couldn't execute anything in critical moments on both sides of the ball. But the defense, although it played better than the offense last year, had a lot of them. So here are my guys. Conrad Hussey. This is a kid that played at St. Thomas Aquinas. I know him personally. Got to know him when he was down there at that program. Great kid. He could really run. He could be a nickel. He could be a safety. He could be a corner. I don't care which spot it is in Coach White's defense. They got 2 elite DB coaches at Florida State. I just want him to find a home definitively in this new scheme. And again, without seeing it with this current group of players, I'm a little hesitant to say, oh, well, Conrad, he needs to be this safety for that. I don't know the defense well enough. That stinks, but they didn't show us anything in spring, so I need to see it live, and unfortunately, that's going to be the Alabama game. That's rough, but whatever spot it is, because he's a super smart kid, Conrad Hussey needs to be the guy that takes a step up just from above the shoulders and understanding the scheme. I hope they give him the opportunity because I think he can be a consistent contributor at Florida State, possibly play in the NFL. He's got coverage skills more like a corner than most kids, but he can hit like a safety. There's got to be a home for him. And when I say a home, not just, okay, he's this spot on the depth chart. He plays consistently. If Conrad Hussey is not playing consistently this fall, there's something wrong. And I'll call him out. I don't care how many good DB coaches, how many good defense. I know he can play. That's one. Number two, this is a kid that I don't know why I've just taken a liking to. Something about the way he plays, the way he strikes guys when he shoots through. He reminds me of some of the Mickey Andrews linebackers. That's Blake Nicholson. Now, he's a California kid that came across the country to play for the Noles, and they found a gem in terms of his athleticism. I don't remember if it was second or third quarter, but I just remember Georgia Tech game, I believe. He sniffed out a play, beat the blocker to the point of attack, got by, and just smacked a guy in the backfield. I'm like, okay, this is somebody that is starting to see the ball and get ahead of it, like where it's going, because you already knew the athleticism was there the way Blake ran. But now can he do some of the other little things that are in the same light? But can Blake Nicholson, along with understanding the scheme, again, all of them are going to have to learn the scheme. That's part of it. Can he be the guy that uses his hand, all the little technical things, when you cannot beat the guy to the spot? The one thing that like Ray Lewis and other elite linebackers like Lawrence Timmons that played at Florida State, I talked about a little bit ago, why they were good, yes, speed, hitting, athleticism. You've got to be able to use your hands when there's just simply no way around it. That guy's up in your face. You're going to have to beat him with your hands. Can you get off blocks? Block destruction. Need to see it more this year with him and not just I'm a better athlete. I'm going to dip. I'm going to shake you. Can you beat block destruction? He's probably the most unique guy on this list because inside linebackers, there are times it's not going to be friendly. Those big dudes in front of you, every now and then they're going to be in position when they block down or whatever. You're not getting around them. You've got to use your hands in conjunction with your feet and your hips to power by them with hand technique, and then you get into the leverage and athleticism. I don't think Blake was great at that last year. Need to see him take another step forward. KJ Sampson, this one's real short and sweet. He's a house. He's athletic. So when you get somebody over 300 pounds at defensive tackle, KJ Sampson that can move like that, can he be a guy next to Gerald Jackson that takes off some of the pressure? Whenever he's in the game, whether he's starting, come off the bench, I don't care. That stuff will take care of itself in the fall. Florida State's got a pretty good depth chart on the defensive line. There's no excuse for them not to be pretty good there. Can he be a game wrecker, though? Not just a guy that plays 15 snaps, blah, blah, blah. It's a redshirt sophomore. He's been around now. Third year, especially for linemen, is critical. Can he take that step forward and be a dude? Or is he just going to be pretty good? Like just his natural ability. He's an NFL player talent-wise, naturally. But now it's about effort. And kind of like I said on Blake Nicholson, block destruction. I'd probably talk about that more if I was smart. But that is something that he's got to do. The guys that are great, it's all the technical stuff, accepting coaching. Even when you don't like it, even when you don't agree with it, do it anyway and make it happen. I don't know KJ, but I think the world of his physical attributes, it's time to see it. Game 1 against Bama. You're going to have to rotate a million times. Bama's offensive line is nasty. You're going to have a bunch of huge guys up there. Caden Proctor, who might be the first tackle off the board in the 2026 draft. Yeah, he'll be in Doak Campbell Stadium playing left tackle for Bama. Good luck. If you don't bring your A game, you're going to get YouTube. This is a dude. Those are the kind of situations that you could move your own draft. stock up high. Why not KJ Sampson? He's strong enough. He's athletic enough. He's got the right frame. Why not him? He's got to take a big step forward in terms of his technical ability, but everything else is there. It's above the shoulders with KJ as well. Let's talk about KJ Kirkland. This is somebody that I don't know why some of these guys didn't hit already. Like last year was so weird at DB. Florida State is really good in the secondary in terms of they're just raw talent. I don't know if it's something that was it confidence last year? Was it something else? But like I got the impression that Florida State just really didn't believe in itself after that second game. Like they were close against Georgia Tech, but then the BC game, like it just seemed different defensively. There were just too many lapses mentally, and I'm not sure what it was. Just knowing KJ, I had a chance to scout him in high school, saw him live, and he had a tremendous game the night that I went to see him. They were playing in Ocala at Trinity Catholic, and he had one of the best interceptions I've ever seen in the high school level. He came from the far hash, dragging his feet on the other side of the field to catch a pass for an interception going out of bounds. Like he read it, he went, and he just took a chance because he was outside of his territory, but he didn't care. He went all the way across the field, made the play, and he was really good in the run game. He could diagnose. Well, based on the fact that, again, I know we haven't seen them play with these players yet, but that three safety system, if he's not a starter based on kind of like what I said earlier about Conrad Hussey, I'd be surprised. But at the very least, he should be a guy that's constantly on the field and in the rotation. Smart, athletic, has good hands, will play the run. Conrad Hussey, I would not be shocked if he's a guy that's kind of competing with KJ. They might play next to each other. Maybe they'll play the same spot, but they're similar in terms of their mentalities. KJ Kirkland has the athleticism to be your center fielder, or if you wanted to drop him into the box a lot and or play him some at nickel and blitz, like there's a million ways you can use him. I think he will be the least likely of the guys I'm talking about today to make mental errors. And I think that's why he's a guy that will end up starting, but just his personality, the way he carries himself, the way he's so sharp, he's the kind of guy I think will do well in FSU's new defense. Edwin Joseph, this is another one that's pretty simple. Athletic, speedy kid, played down there at Chaminade Madonna, South Florida kid. He has been a nickel. He had a pick last year for the Noles. I just need to see him take another step forward in general. I kind of hope they turn him loose. I know this is going to be a little bit more of a mental defense in terms of like you got three safeties doing different things, trying to cause havoc. But I really hope they keep it simple, especially near the line of scrimmage, because he's such a physical player. Don't make him read a ton of stuff. Please don't do that with a bunch of these young players, because if they do and they just let them play fast, they're going to make some mistakes. They'll get gouged here and there, but they're going to create more havoc and more turnovers. You could argue, debatable, but Edwin Joseph might be the guy in the secondary that creates the most havoc plays for Florida State this next season. He's probably overly aggressive. I will grant you that, but I'd rather a guy be playing overly aggressive compared to overly passive. So he's a hitter, and you could probably play him at nickel or in this deep secondary at safety. They might even use him in multiple roles, but nickel package, dime, etc. I think Edwin Joseph is going to be really good. Jabril Rawls. This is another kid I know from the Pensacola area. Long as all get out. He's competing for a starting job. Kind of like I said with Conrad Hussey, just want him to have a definitive role. Is it corner? Is he going to be able to play any safety? They're going to move him around. How much will he be involved with the nickel and dime package? Rawls, I always thought he was really good, but he finally kind of started getting on the field last year. Is he going to take that step mentally to believe in himself to make plays on game day? That's the only question I have. Physically, he's there. The other thing, we'll see what happens with him, but I don't know how good he will be in the run game. That's partially just understanding who you're going against, knowing your assignments. I'm guessing, but maybe that's something that held him back. I certainly don't have any insight on that. But if he can play the run as well as I know, I've seen him cover before. I've seen him play several times. That's a kid that I believe could be very, very good for Florida State, possibly even a starter at corner. And then Quindarius Jones, a guy that I didn't hear much about this spring, and I'm just surprised. Whatever's going on with the new scheme, maybe it didn't fit him that well. They got to find a home for him. Way too good, way too long, way too athletic. Need to make it happen. And I picked these guys because they're all kids. They're going to be in their junior year. Again, these are all class of 23 as a general rule in college football. Third-year players, if they don't start making some serious inroads towards playing time and or starting, a good portion of those kids from that class that don't probably will never be anything more than special teams contributors, even if that. It's different in college. Sometimes you just don't know. Athleticism doesn't get it done. But bottom line, you got to find out just by putting them out on the field this August and let it kind of compete, let them all compete, and whoever wins is whoever wins. But we'll see how it goes. But I'm curious to see, especially that deep secondary, how it goes for Florida State, because they've got so many athletes back there. How much did they pick up the skiing? Because this could be a really good secondary. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. We will see you all again tomorrow.